Welcome back to the calculus. So this is homework set number 4. We're working in part 2 now. I gotta change that from part 1 to part 2. We're working on question number 6. The solution to this problem is pi minus 3. So here's how we get it. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting and you can't just blindly follow a formula. So we're looking for the distance between two numbers, right? We'll call one of them, our x1 is 3. It doesn't really matter the order I go in here, but I'm going to let x2 be equal to pi. I could have won x1 is equal to pi and x2 is equal to 3. Doesn't matter. Our notation is we're trying to find the distance of 3 and pi. You can think about that like a function that has two inputs. So what is the distance? Well, to find the distance between just two numbers, the formula is to take the difference of those two numbers and the absolute value of that. So we've been doing this. So that will be my x2 value is pi, my x1 value is 3, and now that is equal to pi minus 3. I can drop the absolute value sign. Now, the reason I can drop the absolute value sign is because I know that pi minus 3 is positive, because pi is greater than 3, right? Pi is 3.14, right? So here, pi is 3.1415927 roughly, right? I mean, it goes on forever, so can't possibly write down all the decimals there. So if I take that number and subtract 3 from it, that'd be like taking 3.1415927 and subtracting 3. And that still gives me a positive 0.1415927. So, since pi is greater than 3, the absolute value of pi minus 3 is just pi minus 3. We don't need the absolute value signs anymore, so we can drop them. Now, if we go the other way, then we would have the absolute value of 3 minus pi. Now here we can't just drop the absolute values. We have to make it negative. Okay, now let me go through an explanation of why I make it negative. First, okay, so because 3 minus pi is negative, okay, that implies that pi minus 3 is positive. Now let me go through why it implies that. So if I take the negative of both sides, that flips. Remember, if you multiply both sides by a negative with inequalities, it flips. So I get negative 3 minus pi is greater than, now negative 0 is just 0. So if I distribute that negative in, I get negative 3 plus pi is greater than 0, which is the same thing as pi minus 3 is greater than 0. And since pi minus 3 is positive, then that guy that comes out is also a positive value. So this is the same thing as pi minus 3.